What's up, guys? Today we're going to be taking a look at my FRS drift car here. It's pretty gnarly. It's got an LS in it, it's got a supercharger, and it's got straight cut gears and everything. So I think you guys will like it. I made one of these videos a long time ago on the same car with a different setup, and I've done a bad job on my YouTube of keeping it up to date. So hopefully this video does it some justice, and we're going to take a look at the car and hopefully answer some of you guys' questions. All right, so before you guys click away, let's just get straight into the engine, because I'm sure that's what most people are interested in. So looks a little different this year. We got the intake sticking out of the hood and a giant supercharger right here. So getting right into it. So it's a LS base motor. The motor is built by FabMac Industries, one of my sponsors here. I can tell you a little bit about it. It's a fully built bottom end, rods, pistons. It's got a Molar rotating assembly crankshaft. It's got some BTR cam and all the valve train to rev it pretty high. It's a 6.0 base, nothing crazy. And basically what we have here is a Vortex supercharger kit. This one specifically is for a 2010 Camaro, and it is what pro drift driver Odibachi's runs. I saw him running this setup and for a while, and saw that he didn't have a lot of belt issues and it seemed pretty reliable, so I went down this route, and so far I'm really happy. I got 0 belt slip, and this thing puts out some power, let me tell you. So on top of the engine we have a carbon fiber PTR intake manifold, which is pretty baller. It's one of my favorite parts about this engine. It makes it look really expensive, and it obviously sticks out the hood. So I told myself if I had to cut up the hood, at least it's got to be pretty. So we got this nice carbon fiber intake right here, and then on top of that, so it's got custom made headers by me. Pretty much all the whole exhaust on this car is custom made for the transmission setup and everything. So that's not off the shelf, but nothing else super crazy on the engine. It's got injector dynamics, injectors, and Canton Racing front sump oil pan, which is you can just buy off the shelf. And then besides that, we got a Holley 105mm throttle body with Vibrant Performance Vangent clamps here. Vibrant's one of my sponsors this year, and they hooked it up with all these materials and clamps to be able to do all this cool stuff. So I'm really happy about this stuff and the really high quality products. We got all Vibrant fuel lines, everything's AN, and the car has a rear mount radiator, so we have some 16 AN lines that go all the way back to the car. But in the front here we got this massive 1200 horsepower capable Treadstone intercooler. They're also one of my partners this year, and they hooked it up with this thing, and it has kept the IATs super cold, and I absolutely love it. And then attached to that, I welded this Vortex giant blow-off valve here for this supercharger, because it's making some super crazy air. This is by far the biggest blow-off valve I've ever seen. You guys will have to let me know in the comments what you think, but this is literally next to my fist, so massive, absolutely massive. But it does a great job of bleeding off the air that we don't want it to go in the intake to get this thing to idle. Besides that, it's a Vortex V3 SI blower. It's one of their middle ranged ones. They definitely make bigger ones, but for my power goals, this is perfect. This package right now is making about 633 horsepower, around 533 torque, and this is on a very big pulley right now. This is a 9 psi pulley right now, so we're barely even getting into this thing. The motor is capable of 4-digit numbers. Basically all I gotta do is just change this pulley and lean on the engine a little bit harder. But for right now, the competition drifting I'm doing, I don't necessarily need all that power. I'm limited by the tire size. So and just getting used to the car, and it's less stress on everything right now. So And the 600 is perfect for what I'm trying to do right now, but this package, you can turn it up to whatever you want, really. So I'm super stoked about that. I just put this engine in this year with Fab Mac. So this is my first year with this build engine and the supercharger, and I absolutely love it. This car is a freaking animal. And I'll throw some driving clips in somewhere in this video, and you guys can hear this thing rip. It is absolutely a monster. So I tried to invest in the car this year for the next years, because this engine can keep growing with me. I can turn up the boost, turn up the power as I grow as a driver. So that's one of the biggest changes I made this year, was the new engine. But besides that, in the engine bay, nothing else too crazy. It still actually has just the factory brake set up. Nothing really crazy. We just got some oil coolers and power steering coolers. We got a stock power steering pump, and nothing else too crazy. For angle, we have a FDF Mega Mantis kit that is meant to work with a Nissan 240 steering rack. So the car's got hydraulic power steering. These cars, if you know anything about them, they're typically electric from the factory. So with drifting, it doesn't really work well with big angle. So we relocate the steering rack forward to help the tie rod angles down there, and run a hydraulic steering rack. So that keeps things simple with the power steering pump and belt routing. On top of that, we have our sick Kanzai wheels here. We got the Astros on this thing. I absolutely love these wheels. These are one of my favorite wheels for these cars, and I get so many cool compliments about them, so I'm glad a lot of people like them too. For the body kit, it's just eBay Rocket Bunny kit in the front. It's really cheap. They're plastic. They're really durable, actually. So it keeps things low cost, and I think it looks pretty good, and they fit great too. So stock bumper on the front, and we got a stock hood just cut up. Moving to the back, so we got this new livery for this year. Got all my sponsors on here. Rosebuilt, that's actually my shop here, and that's what my Instagram is right here. If you guys want to follow along, we'll see some drifting content of this thing. I post this thing a lot. I do a bad job of posting this thing on YouTube, but I really keep up my Instagram a lot. So if you're really interested or have any questions, feel free to DM me on that. Like I said, I built this car myself from the cage to everything, so it's been a long process, and this is the first cage I ever did, the first engine swap, all that stuff. So the car was a big learning experience for me, and it's definitely came a long way, and there's a million things I would change now if I was going to redo it, but pretty happy with how everything turned out for a lot of this stuff being my first. Interior, pretty basic. Obviously, it's got a FD roll cage. I did custom. And then in the back, that little cooler over there is a cool shirt right here. And basically, there's just a pump in there. It's basically a cooler with a pump, and you put ice water in it. And then these two things hook up to your race suit. And it's AC when you're in the car, so it pumps cold water through your shirt, which is super nice when you have your race suit on. It keeps your head in the game, and you're not like getting heat stroke in here, because these things get super hot. Then we have the Holley 7-inch dash. I've been running this thing for a while, and had no issues with that. Got cool logos on it, and it's really easy to read. Stock pedals down there, just did a little bit of modifications. That gas pedal is what I get asked a lot about from people that are trying to do the swap. It's a 2002 like WRX cable gas pedal, and I just cut it up and modified it for LS throttle cable. We got an arc switch panel, and then the transmission here, we have a 4-speed dog box transmission. It's by Hightower Transmissions. The thing's awesome. It's impossible to miss a gear pretty much, and it sounds crazy. So these things can hold a lot of power. I used to have a Nissan Z32 transmission when I first did this swap, and it was definitely, I was on a budget, and it definitely worked for a while with the 5.3 engine that I had in it that didn't make a ton of horsepower. But as I started to progress and beat on it more as a driver, I popped it, and so I just decided to invest in everything and go the dog box route. So The car has a QuickTime bell housing with Clutch Masters clutch and tilt-in throwout bearing that goes to this 4-bolt 4-speed high tower dog box. From there, it's got a 3.5-inch aluminum drive shaft that goes to the back here. We'll take a look at that. Along to the back, some of the biggest things I changed this year with the car was the back of the car. So the car has the radiator in the back and the fuel cell. I used to have a fuel cell in a different spot, and I changed it all this year, and I'm really happy with how things played out. I tried to get as much weight over the rear wheels as possible to get as much grip on these tires as possible. So what I did was I switched to a 10-gallon fuel cell. This is a fuel safe unit with a radium drop-in surge tank and pump unit. Absolutely love the quality of this thing. This thing is really nice, and it cleans up a lot of stuff. It basically has 3 pumps inside of it and a surge tank to keep everything neat and tidy. And then back here, I have the radiator snuck back there with a little scoop here, and that actually works, keeps the car really cold. In a lot of drift cars, you'll see the radiator back here because there's not a lot of room in the engine bay, 1, especially on this car, and 2, the farther you put it in the back, the longer it takes for the coolant to get back to the engine, so it just gives it so much more time to cool. And then you can stuff the giant radiator back here with some giant fans. So the car is pretty dirty right now. I just got back from grid life, and we definitely went a little off-roading at some times, avoiding some things on track. So there is some dirt back here, just be mindful. But back here, it's pretty simple. I should say the back kit of the car is from 2F Performance. This is all fiberglass. The metal of the car basically stops right here. So if you get an accident here, it's a lot easier to replace some fiberglass than to be cutting up sheet metal and welding stuff. So under here is cut, and these replacement quarter panels just bolt on right here. So it's all cut out back here. This is normally where your trunk is, and I have this huge, very beefy crash structure here, some box tubing that I welded up with some bash bars that bolt to this, which these are meant to be replaceable. This is meant to protect the car and the radiator. So we have a dual pass radiator here with some Dural fans with 4,000 CFM, which seem to do the trick, keeping this thing pretty cold. And then in the back here we have an AccuSump. This thing's crucial in keeping oil pressure good on track, especially when you're drifting. It helps prevent oil starvation in the engine, and it's basically insurance for your engine. So I have this back here, and there's an oil line that goes all the way back through the transmission tunnel to the engine itself that helps keep oil pressure good. Besides that, that's pretty much it back here. The trunk is also fiberglass, really thin stuff. The stuff's all meant to be crashed and easily replaceable, so you can see the whole thing is flexible and moves. One of the other biggest things I'm stoked about this year is the back setup in this car. I don't know if I've talked a lot about this on YouTube, but with the stock diff in this car and the stock axles, I've had so many issues over the years. I broke like 15 axles last season drifting this thing, and it is just impossible to keep up with. I couldn't drive the car to its full potential and how I wanted it. I had to like drive around the axles. So this year I stepped it up, and we got a quick change, baby. So this thing is an absolute unit. It's a Winters Performance quick change. It's got a spool in it, and these are awesome. They can take a crap ton of power, and you can fit a giant axle. So that was the main reason I switched to the quick change, not only for the diff strength, but you can fit an absolutely beefy axle. So I haven't had any axle issues this year, and this is amazing. This is the farthest and most events I've ever done on one set of axles since I built this car, and I'm actually absolutely stoked. For the back suspension here, so we have a Winters quick change with a custom subframe. I modified this myself. I made a jig and absolutely welded all this stuff up to hold this diff in here, because this diff is not meant to be in this car. Then what I did was I got Wisefab suspension. This is their rear grip kit. which made this thing super fast and super grippy, along with some BC Racing two-way coilovers back there, which just maximize our suspension travel, paired with some Wisefab axles. So these axles are top dog. They hold like 1200 or like 1500 horsepower, and they are meant to actually twist before they even break. So I've had no issues so far, and are absolutely stoked on that. Also back here I have my battery. I just mounted it upside down and as low as possible to get our center of gravity as close to the bottom as possible and keep our weight as close to 50 as possible. So I've actually weighed this thing. It weighs in right about like 2950 without me in it, which is pretty light for what it is, and it still has an iron block in the front. So and there's definitely some things I could shave off of this thing to get some more pounds, like the doors and everything. It still has working windows and a ton of wiring in it, so pretty happy with that. The thing absolutely rips for having 600 plus horsepower, and it is super fun to drive and super competitive. Not a car check unless you hear this thing run, so let's fire it up and do a little walk around. All right, so that wraps up this car check for 2023. If you enjoyed this car and you enjoy this content and want to stick around and watch some of my drifting, I'm gonna try to post more on my YouTube. So feel free to subscribe or leave a like, and I will try to post some more content on this thing. In the meantime, if you want to see some more stuff and see some more in-depth pictures of everything, check out my Instagram handles right there. And I will try to post a little bit more. You can feel free to DM me if you have any questions or want to see some more stuff about the car. But absolutely stoked about the car this year. It's looking sick, and I just want to thank all my sponsors that helped me get this far. We got FatMac Industries for the built 6.0 motor here. We have BC Racing for the sweet coilovers we have that give all the grip. We've got Driveshaft Pro with the 3.5 inch awesome aluminum drive shaft, and we have Vibrant Performance, which hooking it up with all the awesome piping and clamps to keep this thing super cool and all the fuel delivered and in the hoses. And then have Treadstone Performance with the awesome intercooler in the front that keeps everything nice and cold. And lastly, we have Redline Oil, which we run in the engine. We run the 50 weight race motor oil in this thing, and it keeps oil pressure super consistent and keeps this engine running. So I just want to thank everybody, and feel free to subscribe and leave a comment, and I'll try to get some more videos on this thing. Thanks.